Hello and welcome once again to the Living Past live stream, the second one of this year. Due to Corona times, we have had to adjust, but this is a wonderful format to show you what our students have been working on in this multidisciplinary hands-on course. Otherwise, except for this introduction and the Q&As, you won't be hearing too much from me. You will be hearing a lot from the teams though. And there are two teams who have been working on putting Utrecht in the picture, the Dom Square to be more specific. And that in particular are the two teams. One, Team Toad, who's been working on the Dom Square Time Trap, a location-based game in which you depetrify historical figures inspired by Pokemon Go. Well, you will find out what exactly that means. And we will also have Team The Knave Returns, bringing back what once was on the square through the wonderful magic of augmented reality. How the session will work is exactly as last time. The teams will first present their work, kind of showing you their design process, getting you through that. And after that is done, there will be a Q&A in which you are very welcome to use the chat functionality on YouTube to ask them questions and further get to know their design process and also how you think they may be able to improve on their work. So without too much further ado, I would like to give the floor to a pre-recorded team. The other team will do it live, so that is also very exciting, a first in this live stream series. Team Toad, who will be presenting Dom Square Time Trap. I hope you will enjoy.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. In this presentation, we will introduce you our prototype, Time Trap. In this game, you have been chosen by the heavens to save Utrecht from doom. You don't know me yet, but I will be your guide in this adventure. I will now start by explaining a little bit more about what you will need to know about this journey. So first, we're going to talk to you about our target audience, our concept, our contribution, and the match between our target audience and our product. Then we're going to focus more on the game itself. We're going to talk to you about our story, the composition of our game, its technical aspects, and how the prototype works in general. And then finally, we're going to focus more on work in progress or the elements that we encountered and that we struggled with, further possibilities for development for this prototype, and then we'll conclude this presentation. We started working on this project in a very dual way. On the one hand, we were thinking about our prototype, and on the other hand, we were thinking about associated target audiences. Basically, what we were really focusing on at that time was how can our prototype or concepts fulfill as best as possible the needs or interests of our specific target audience. And in our case, we wanted to focus on 15 to 19 years old high schoolers. And we were able to focus on this age gap thanks to the survey. We selected this target audience for several reasons. First, we noticed that 3 of our teammates belong to this target audience. And so by designing the prototype in the way we did, we were already focusing on some of their interests and needs, which was also a good way for us to gain a preliminary understanding of some of the members of our target audience, though of course this was not representative of all the interests and needs of 15 to 19 years old high schoolers. And the second reason, and the second main reason why we focus on high schoolers and 15 to 19 years old is because we suspected that there was a lack of interest in learning about history, and in our case in the history of Dom Square, for younger audiences. And this was confirmed by some research and news articles that we found. But as you can see, the articles focus either on the US or are slightly dated. So we thought that it was very important for us to conduct surveys with our target audience to further explore this gap and understand better their needs and interests. So overall, we had 45 respondents between the age of 15 and 19. And what we learned was that they were not interested in taking guided tours of Dom Square for several reasons. They were not interested in the way in which history was presented in these guided tours. But they also mentioned that they had limited time and money, which affected or explained why they didn't want to take any guided tours. However, several of our interviewees were really open to the idea of learning more about Dom Square. And by several, I mean 11. But it's also important to note that out of 45 respondents, not all of them answered all the questions. So in this case, 11 is rather high. And so we thought that this would be a good gap for us to explore and bridge with our prototype. For our prototype, we came up with the idea of a web-based treasure hunt game. And in this case, it would involve collecting historical characters and learning about them. But treasure hunt also means reward, right? So ideally in our case it would be a voucher for coffee, hot chocolate, or discounts at local stores and catering facilities. But we'll come back to this in a moment. So in that way we thought that our target audience would be able to explore Dom Square and eventually the city of Utrecht in a way that's not only instructive but also entertaining. And when we asked for feedback about our idea to our survey respondents, it was met with great success. They said they loved or liked the idea, that it sounded fun. And 23 of our respondents said that they would be willing to play our prototype. We are making 2 contributions. First, a societal one, which is, as I mentioned before, allowing a better engagement of younger audiences with the history of Dom Square. Another added value of this prototype is that by including vouchers, we would allow locals to generate more business. Secondly, we are making a contribution to the Living Past course. We do so by building upon one of the previous prototypes created in 2019, which is the interactive dialogue about a gruesome murderer. Like this prototype, we also rely on decision-making to move the story forward. Players will have to engage with the historical characters in our game to move the story forward and go from one figure to the next. Secondly, our prototype also builds upon our instructors' work. We expanded on their map and some of the code they gave us to create this prototype. As I mentioned before, in this project, we focused a lot on how we could match our prototype and our target audience needs as best as possible. And in this case, we selected a treasure hunt because we thought that this could generate an interest in learning about the history of Dom Square by combining entertainment and learning. We were inspired by Pokemon Go and treasure hunts or escape games because these formats are rather in trend and have received a lot of interest from our target audience. And this can be seen in the positive reactions that we got for our format in the survey that we conducted.
We opted for a web-based format because the game is now easily accessible without the hassle to download an app first. Because the GPS is turned off for now, you can also play the game from home. We chose this particular content, on which I will elaborate on in the next few slides, so the user can just enjoy the story, or can go deeper and learn more about history by taking the small step of just clicking on the More Information button in the game, a feature that won't take the user out of the game, but that is incorporated in the game itself in the form of a character sheet. For this prototype, we created a linear story to connect the different parts of the game in an easy-to-follow and closed narrative. We tried to give the user as much agency in the game as possible for now by giving them options in the form of a dialogue that will lead to seemingly different outcomes in the game. This linearity might seem boring and less entertaining for the audience at first, but keep in mind this is a prototype and just a proof of concept. A prototype first level, as it were. In a more developed version of the game, we can create an experience more like Pokemon Go, and in which you can collect characters, and we could even divide the characters into categories, for example, scholars or warriors, and we can let go of the linear story that connects the game's characters for now. The overarching narrative for our game is based on factual and fictional events in Utrecht, and they are supplemented with our own creation. So first, the storm, the Schrikkelijk-Tempest of 1647, was not only responsible for the collapse of the nave of the Dom Church, but the storm also weakened the very fabric of time. The renovations on the Dom Tower now have opened this rift in time, waking up the Basilisk of Utrecht, a legendary creature that lives in the Werfkelders and turns people into stone with its deadly gaze. But at the same time, the time rift displaced some historical characters on the Dom Square in the here and now. These characters have been turned into statues, memorial plaques, or have been made part of a building by the Basilisk. You, the user, are the only one who can set time right and save Utrecht, mostly by petrifying the characters and, at the end, battle the Basilisk. In the game you will be guided by the Oracle in the form of Sister Bertken, a woman who in the 15th century enclosed herself in an anchor cell in the Buurkerk in Utrecht, and who also served as an advisor for Utrecht locals. And in our game, she's an oracle who can occasionally predict the future and who will guide you throughout the game. In the end, or even sooner, you either fail to save Utrecht, or you are the hero of the Dom Square and get a reward. Important to note again, we mix actual and fictional events in the game. Onto the game's characters. We mostly chose historical figures from Utrecht or persons that are either connected to the Dom Square. We selected the characters on the basis of different time periods, and also in order to create as much diversity in our game. For now we have 4 women, 5 men and 1 mythical creature, but no persons of color, and that's a problem. All the characters have a link to a building, a memorial, or a statue, and in our narrative they are linked to each other by objects they give and receive. The objects are related to the stories, fictional or historical. So for example, Jan van Nassau has the declaration, and the interactions between the characters are definitely fictional. A very quick run through of our game's characters. I already mentioned Sister Bertken, who is connected to the Buurtkerk and who gives you a potion in order to petrify all the characters. Van Salvignol, a French poet who has a statue behind his Dom Church, and Malkosia Fiebig, our Carillionist, who is an example of a more contemporary person in our game. Then we have Jan van der Doom, architect and builder of the Dom Tower, Truus van Leer, a resistance member during the Second World War, and Jan van Nassau, well known for organizing the Union of Utrecht, and his object in the game is therefore also the Union of Utrecht. Then we have Anna-Maria van Schuurman, a first female student at Utrecht University. She has a plaque on her former home behind the Dom Square. Christopher Doris Buys-Ballot, meteorologist, and his face is featured on the Academy building. And then there's Brino, a Canophate warrior, who we connected to the Limes. And our last character, the Basilisk, who features as a villain in our game. So, every character has a character sheet, on which you will find their general background information, and in most cases also their link to Utrecht or the Dom Square. And here you can see an example of the character sheet, in this case Jan van Nassau. We kept the text deliberately short so that you can easily read it on your phone. And the character sheets are mostly like a lemma, more biographical information, and we added some sources for further reading. And for the content of the text we relied on open sources like Wikipedia, but we make sure to cross-reference them with additional academic sources.
So, now moving on to the game composition, we're moving on to the more technical part of the game. So our game consists of 3 main components, which is the map you see in the bottom left, the inventory, and the dialogue you see on the top right. Now these 3 game components stand individual of each other, but they do interact with one another to make one smooth game. Now moving on to the technical aspect, we chose to make our game programming language Angular. Main reason for that was that it was a front-end website development, meaning that if we deploy it on a website, our user won't have to install an application. When it clicks on it, it's ready to play. It is dynamic, which means that what the user sees can be changed without reloading the website, which is in contrast to HTML. When a user clicks a button or makes a request, the whole website needs to be reloaded. Angular above that is also widely used and easily accessible. On top of Angular, we used Ionic, which is a program to simplify visual elements. So what it means is that it makes our buttons easier, it makes it more beautiful, so it actually is appealing to the physical eye. We're not putting too much effort into it. For later projects, also means it's easily deployable on Android and iOS. And then on top of that, we used Mapbox. It's a plugin for the map. It was easy to simply work with markers, and it's also easily and highly customizable with just the clicks of a few buttons and no technical programming experience. So to give you more visual representation of what our program is built up upon, I show you that in the middle we have our platform. With Ionic, works with Angular, React, and Vue. For this, we chose Angular with reasons described in the slides before. This is just the plain coding. On top of that, we used Ionic, which Ionic gives our UI. So Ionic works together with Angular, where we also program Ionic. But what Ionic does is that it simplifies the whole UI process. And what would simply usually take hundreds of lines of code is now done in only a few lines of code. You see our image in the top right example where the buttons and the pop over, this is all easily made with Ionic. Then as a plugin for Angular, below you have Mapbox. This is where you see the map view. Mapbox just it pops into Angular and it easily just gives us the map, which is highly customizable.
In our game, the player can collect items which they can view in the inventory. These items are given to them by the characters, and sometimes they have to give these items away to progress the story. These items had to be stored in a way that will protect them from the game crashing or you having to reload because of an issue. And we did this in the form of local storage, where we save the item IDs in an array. We adapted this method to also save the story progress, so that would also be protected from crashing or reloading. We had planned to do this in the form of a server backend, but we had to drop this idea because we did not have enough development time for this during the course. The original plan also included a login page so that people could log in and retrieve their progress.
Now we'll do a run-through of our game. When you go to the link of our game, you'll get to this website. It's a map with markers, and you should start with the red marker. When you click on the red marker, you go to this page of the Oracle, in which you see the name, an image, what she is, a guide and recluse, and start your adventure. You can either click on Talk to Oracle or More Information. When you click on More Information, you get the character sheet of the Oracle with her origin, story, name, type, lifespan, and sources to find even more information. And an image, of course. When you click on Talk to Oracle, the dialogue with the Oracle will start. You'll see her image, and then she says, "Chosen one, the integrity of time has been compromised. The storm of 1674 has weakened the fabric of time and space, causing a rift in time here and now." Then you can either say, "I'm intrigued, why?" or "I'm not taking part in this." If you choose the second option, you can say, "Yes, I'm a coward, take me out of here," and then you'll have an end of the game here. You can also take you back then, and then you can have a conversation with the Oracle in which she'll give you a common rule concoction, and at the end of the conversation you can either go. We've also created technology that makes sure that you can only open a station if you're physically close enough, but right now we didn't use that, so you can play the story without. Then you'll see that a few things have changed. When you go to the inventory, you'll see that there is the potion, the common rule concoction that the Oracle gave you. When you look at the markers, you see that some have changed their color. The green one means that you have already finished that station. A red one is the next one that you'll have to go to. And the gray ones mean that they aren't unlocked yet. When you go this way through all of the stations, you can finish the story and end with the end fight with the basilisk. And this way you can finish your game.
During the course, we had a limited amount of time to work on a product, so we had to choose what to work on. A few things that we did not have time to work on but would have liked to implement are diversifying the historical characters. Right now, most of the game is dominated by white male historical figures. We would have liked to add more women and people of color. We'd also have liked to include more local historical characters with more relevance to the history of Utrecht, because some of the characters are now only vaguely relevant to the history. And as a last point, we would have liked to have a switch option for people to choose what mode they would like to play the game. Currently, the game is set to the Save at Home mode, where you can explore the characters from your phone or computer at home. But we'd also like to have this option to switch on the GPS mode, where you have to explore the square. The idea is that this Explore the Square mode is also the main version of the game that people would play, so they explore the square and learn about its history.
Suggestions for further developments. In this prototype, we ran into a lot of limitations because we only had 10 weeks to develop something. We had a team which was not very experienced in Angular or even programming as a concept itself. So if we had maybe more financing, more time, a bigger or experienced team, we would have changed some things. Our story in the current state is a first level linear story, meaning that the choice you make, they might affect the dialogue. You still earn the same items, go to the same characters, and beat the same boss at the ending. You would have liked to maybe have alternative endings being on basis of what you say and have a more unique gaming experience for the user itself. Second of all, we would love to have this project more escapable to the location itself. Right now it's for Utrecht, but if you were to put different historical stories, add different figures, put different coordinates for locations, this project would very well be playable, for example, Lubbock, Overvecht, or maybe even Florence for that matter. We would have loved to translate the game in other Anglo languages, and most importantly in Dutch, because right now we have a game about Domplein and Domtoren aimed at high school Dutch students. But we are using English to communicate to them, which is a big loss and a big limitation to our game.
Conclusion. So our target audience is 15 to 19-year-old high schoolers, and we've created a web-based treasure hunt game for them, with a map with markers that lead to the stories, dialogues with the characters, an inventory with the items that you've collected, and character sheets for more information about the characters. We want those high schoolers to experience history in an immersive and entertaining way. The stories are partly fictional and partly historically accurate, as well as the figures and the events. We've created it as a scalable concept. We can expand it throughout the city or make the stories more complex, etc. Our product can be found at timetrap.livingpasts.com. Please play our game and check it out. These are our references. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention. Do you have any questions?
All right, and that's where we end up right here in the Q&A with Team Toad. Thank you very much for your presentation just now. Very, very enjoyable seeing the different sides of what goes into developing such an application, from the story building to picking the target audience to the actual technical implementation. At this stage, I would already like to ask our audience to carefully consider what kind of questions they would like to ask of this team. Please put it in the chat. Last year, we were very happy to receive many great questions to really have a discussion with you. So I hope this year that will happen again. And in the meanwhile, just like last year, I prepared a question for you already, which you know about, which is this question. If you need to pick one moment or anecdote or experience that was most memorable to you in this entire Living Past journey that you've made, what would it be?
I think I can answer for the group when I say that we all really enjoyed working together as in the co-design process, because from the beginning we were really communicative with each other. We made clear that we all had boundaries. We focused on what everyone wanted to do. And I think we also all had fun with this process, which was also very nice.
Very happy to hear that. That's very good. I'm still waiting for the questions, but there's much to talk about here. Maybe we could talk a bit about maybe it's the easy question. A few of the challenges you've had. What did you think were some challenges in the different areas? Creating the story, do the historical research, implementing things. Anybody would like to comment on that, perhaps?
Well, maybe for the technical parts, a big challenge was that we were reusing code that was already there, and there was a lot of workarounds, and it was very complex code. So we first had to do the research, and we had to implement our own code, which brought a lot of unexpected errors with it. Yeah, that's why you work with an existing code base, so you actually had to train yourself first in Angular.
which is not the easiest step into programming, I must admit. So, but all things considered, I think you did very well to put this all together. So I'm hoping our audience who's listening now will go to timetrap.livingpasts.com and try it out for themselves as well. I'm still not seeing any questions. That is a bit of a shame. You really need to do better, dear audience. In the meanwhile, I have not to discuss as well. So maybe let's go a bit deeper into this co-design that you mentioned, because that is quite particular about this course, right? We keep throwing around that word. Could you describe a bit what is co-design for you after this entire process? If you would do co-design again, what would that look like in your context, your work group, or a course you might give? Or it's a bit of a big question, but maybe somebody would like to comment on it.
Maybe I can start.
That'd be good, yeah.
For me, from what I experienced, co-design is a lot about collaborating with other people who have completely different backgrounds than the one I have, which was also very interesting in learning how these people think. For instance, the technical aspect of the game, I really didn't understand a lot about it because I don't have a lot of knowledge about it. But it's so amazing that we could collaborate in adapting everything together. And I also think it's a lot about taking control of the course, or we have to decide what we are going to do and what we're going to work on and structure our work, which I think is quite different from what we experience in university in general, which was also very good in becoming more independent in how we work, or at least that's my perspective on this co-design experience so far.
All right. Does that resonate with the rest of you as well, this description? Yeah? Any further comment you'd like to make? Because now actually I received some questions from the audience, so I think we want to go to that, right? The first question is by Frank van Boven, who asks what browsers are supported. It's pretty straightforward question. Could you tell us about that? What did you test it for?
I believe there are... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, Tim.
Well, talking from technical aspect, all browsers, the game is fully functional on all browsers, but they do not work as smoothly for every browser. We have found out some bugs for some browsers, but the time was just too limited to tackle all of them.
So which browser will get a worse experience if people try it out?
Well, I've seen, personally, I had a few problems with Safari, and the best browser is probably just Chrome, I think. Because it's one we've extensively tested on.
Yeah. All right, that's a clear answer. We also have a question by Tom Peters. Did you already test with your target audience, and what was the result? And then I guess he is pointing at the final or almost final product.
We didn't test it with our target audience in the sense that we didn't give them the link and ask them their experience playing the game, because we only finished the game quite recently, and so we didn't want to try the game without for instance, the character charts being included, because this is quite an important part of the game in terms of the learning experience of the game. So we didn't have a chance to do that, but I think some of you tested it with some of your friends, I believe.
I see some nodding people. Sebastian, you nodded as well?
Yeah, I had a few people test it, and most of the remarks were at that point how simple it looked, but at that point we hadn't really went to the UI design.
All right. Yeah, it's still earlier stage. Are you planning to do a kind of evaluation to kind of round off this question? Are you like, well, course is over?
Well, I did send the live stream to a lot of my friends, so I hope that they will give the game a try. And
so leave your reviews and your how many stars, 1 to 5, in the comments, in the chat, and then we can see what your thoughts were on it. All right. We have some more questions and we have some time to answer them. Tim Overkamp is asking, did you consider making it an option to play online with others? Was that part of the discussion at some point or not? Maybe you can first raise your hand and then I can point at who can answer. That's maybe easiest. Yes, I see Sebastian. Yeah.
Yeah, we did think about this, but that would have included logging in and having a database with accounts and such, which would have been a lot of taken a lot of time to design. I also said this in the saving of the inventory part that any server backend would have taken a lot of time to implement.
That's right. Yeah. I think that's well addressed. But do you think that game mechanics wise, would it be useful to make it online then? Would it be competitive, collaborative? Is that something you discussed? If you didn't, then we don't have to go into it, of course.
The first idea was that you could collect more items and more points, and that would be more competitive in that sense.
Yeah.
Currently, I'd say it's more fun to play with someone just beside you and go through the story.
All right. I have some new questions in. That is very exciting. Gedi Nijenhuis, who helped us with the social geography part of observing Dom Square back at the start, asks, to what extent could you make use of the mapping exercise in the first part of the course, and what is the value of this mapping? Okay, so what transferred from that exercise to your final product? What was there value in it? Anybody who would like to comment on that? Again, feel free to raise your hand, and then I'll Dagmar.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, I feel like we make use of the space of the things already there, for example, statues or buildings. And in that way, you have another way to discover the square with sort of new eyes and focusing on maybe statues that you haven't encountered before. So I feel like that's something we took from the mapping assignment.
All right, yeah. Any other points you'd like to make? If so, yeah, Jill?
I think another thing that personally I took from the mapping assignment was, in that assignment I conducted interviews with university students, and I realized that they were not very interested in learning about Dom Square. And so from that, we had this suspicion that maybe younger audiences, including high schoolers, would not be interested. So that was also the very basis for our suspicions, additionally to the literature that we had.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Good. I hope Geri is satisfied that her answer is well provided. Maybe as a final question, could we do a little raise of hands? Who of you think we should do the mapping assignment again next year? Do you think that is good to have at the start? Just raise your hand if you think so. Observing the Dom Square is a good thing to do. Okay, well, I guess that's a resounding yes. So I guess there was enough value in it if we want to do it again. I think it's time for two more questions. I have a question by Teun2010, who asks, your aim is to create a game with an historical experience, but you mixed historical facts with fictional. To what extent will the user of the game learn about the history of Utrecht/Domplein? I'm wondering about that too now. Dagmar, you want to respond to this?
Yeah, basically, we have a disclaimer for this as well, and we think it's important to note, obviously. And that's why we created character sheets, so that people who use the game can actually learn something about the person. And in those character sheets, as mentioned before, are other links that you can even learn more about that character.
Okay, so it's like two streams. One of them is more the game level, where things are happening and you need to get inventory items to other people. And then there is kind of the historical layer as a background. Is it kind of is it integrated with the experience, the historical information, or is it really separate from it? How would you describe it?
I feel like it's integrated because it's part of the character sheets, and character sheets are sometimes part of a normal game, so to speak. So it doesn't take you out of the game, and obviously it's not as much as in depth, and we reinstate the fact that it's that most of the narrative is fictional, but we feel like our target audience can make that difference and can understand the difference between fictional and the actual facts.
Yeah, that's the most important, I guess, if you can distinguish them, because indeed, if they're completely mixed, then so in that way, I guess a two-stream approach is a useful one. Yeah. I think I'm going to the final question, which is, I think, a nice question to end on, which is by Frans van Dam. How would you advertise your game, given what is ready and functioning, to a member of your target audience in just a few sentences? And maybe you can also direct this to the people currently watching, to actually play and finish your game to the very end and see all the character sheets. Who would like to try an advertising pitch? Anybody like to give it a try? A big ask. Maybe we can make a quick round so everybody can kind of highlight one particular thing of why you should play it. And maybe we can start with Jill, if you feel like it. Could you give us one thing about this game that makes you think people should play this?
Well, I think it's a very good way of discovering new information about the squares, maybe people that are unknown, in a way that is enjoyable, or at least to me, I think it's fun.
All right. Tanya, what is your thought?
Well, I think it's very nice to have an interactive game in which you can play this and actually see the things that are related to the game.
Mm-hmm.
The statues and such things.
So to be played in person. And Sebastian? Make sure your microphone is on.
I'd say that...
Caught you by surprise.
Yeah. The game is a fun game to play, especially because you interact with the square and the statues that are there. You the characters are at some historical remnants of that time. So you can also read about them maybe there for some plaques or statues.
All right. Tim?
Yes, well, I think it's an interacting and fun way to learn actually about history and the history surrounding Utrecht and Domplein.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a nice short pitch there. And Dagmar is the final pitch of today. Why should high school students and perhaps the people watching take a look at this game?
Well, basically to reiterate, it's the same to learn more about local history and look around you and actually see those plaques and those statues, for example, and learn a bit more about some of your local, or maybe even fellow Utrechters.
Great. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to reading all the text because some things came only together quite recently. I hope you as an audience will join us. In the meanwhile, we're going to take a very little break for me to switch rooms to Team Koala, who are doing their presentations live. In the meanwhile, I'm thanking Team Toad, and I also invite them to take a look at the chat. There were some questions that I have not been able to ask you here, but please just answer it in the chat. I think that would be good if you as a team could do that. All right, thank you. I'll play the bumper now, and then I'll be back in a second with Team Koala. Yes. Hello and welcome back to the live stream. We have here Team Koala in the room. Very much looking forward to their presentation. I will be hiding into the background now to give them the floor. And afterwards, again, we'll have a Q&A. So please feel free to put any questions you might have for that moment in the chat whenever they come up. So enjoy and good luck to Team Koala.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We are the second group presenting our product today. And we worked for the past 10 weeks on an app that we called the Knave Returns. And to give a general introduction, this application uses augmented reality to project a 3D model of the Dom Cathedral into your surroundings through the camera of your smartphone or tablet. And in this presentation, we will discuss the functionalities of the app and how these can be expanded and improved in the future. Ooh, I think something is going wrong with the presentation, so let's have a bit of patience. Oops, that's not the right. A bit of a rough start.
No,
There we
no
go.
worries. We'll
So
manage. There we go.
I encourage listeners to scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now, so you can already download the app. So while I'm introducing the app and talk about our design process, you can already have a look yourself while I'm talking. So feel free to do so. And we designed this app to be accessed through a similar QR code on the DOM Square itself, as was the assignment. And we always kept that in mind in the back of our heads. And with this app, we wanted to tell the story of the storm of 1674 that destroyed the nave of the Dom Cathedral and created the urban space that is the Dom Square today. And our idea was to use augmented reality to give users access to a 3D model of the cathedral. So visitors could get a sense of how the tower was once connected, how the Dom Tower was once connected to the rest of the cathedral. That these buildings, so the tower and the transept that are still in the square today, were once part of the same larger structure before they were split in two. And we wanted to do this through augmented reality, which is basically a way to insert animations and 3D models into your surroundings. And we will do a demonstration later so you can get a better idea of what it looks like and how it works. But of course, we not only wanted to just show a 3D model, but also to tell the story of the storm and the square. So we wrote text and made audio to accompany the model that tell the tragic story of the storm, and in a way also the origin story of Dom Square. It is important to know that originally our plan was to just project the model of the nave to its original location on the square. So just the nave. However, this was too difficult because the nave would have to be perfectly aligned to the existing buildings and stay at a fixed location. And we thought the experience would be too laggy, glitchy, and unreliable if we did this. So instead, we provided a full model of the entire cathedral, which allows to see the entire cathedral at any given location. So you can stand anywhere on the square and put the cathedral in its entirety in front of you, but you can also basically project it in your own living room. So to the next part, we had two main goals with this app, which are listed here. The first being that we wanted to convey the history of the nave and its collapse. And secondly, that we wanted to put AR on the map as a method of preservation. It's as a way to bring back things that are lost without having to build anything new. Of course, there are already other museums and experiences available about the nave and Dom Square. Most famous example being, of course, Dam Under. But we think that our app is valuable because it allows users to see the 3D model of the complete cathedral standing on the square, for users to see it next to the tower and transept that still stand today. And being able to view the model and the square and the remaining structure simultaneously makes people understand the significant change this space underwent, and they can understand this at a glance. Our target audience mainly include tourists, and we aim to tell this story of the nave to international visitors of Utrecht, because we think that most tourists already know the icon of Utrecht, the Dom, but do not know that it was not always the freestanding building it is today, but actually part of a larger structure. We also adapted our product to this target audience in our stories by making it in English and accessible, but we'll go more into that later. But besides accessibility, flexibility was also very important to us. And with flexibility, I mean how long the experience lasts for a user. For example, where one user might just want to check out a model for 10 seconds and then shut down the app to continue walking around, the other, more curious user might want to read or listen to stories about the storm to get to know more about it. So you could spend 10 seconds in the application, but also 10 minutes. And we believe this flexibility in consumption time is important for this target audience because this makes the product more satisfying for different types of tourists, for different levels of curiosity, and still learn something to every one of them. And we believe that widening our target audience like this makes our app more valuable for the city. We used a variety of sources as well, things that helped us in the design of this app. And importantly was a 3D model of the Dom, which was developed by De Rode 3D, which is basically an artist that somehow recreated the old look of the nave based on historical accounts and current architectural characteristics that are still visible. And for the background information of our stories, we made use of the extensive historical accounts of the Utrecht archives to find out more about the events of 1674 and how these were experienced by the inhabitants of the city at the time through witness accounts, news articles, poems. And we used these sources to create and write a more lively story, a more engaging story to tell, together with our 3D model. And also a fun addition was to use a song by the Utrecht metal band Blood God. And this is a metal band that made a song called Het Schrikkelijke Tempest, or The Terrible Tempest. And it's basically a metal song that brings to life the fear and despair that accompanied the storm and the fear of God that it inspired. And it's a great example of how currently still many people interact with history in an original way. And we included this as part of the song. And special thanks to Blood God for allowing us to put it in. And in my opinion, it's also a great song. Now Niels will tell us more about the text and audio included in our app and go more in depth.
Niels, you're muted.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so as Masrix already said, in addition to the AR model, we produced extra content to enrich our product and achieve the main goals of the app, which I again put on the slide here. So first goal was that we want to teach users of our app about the history of the nave. And the second is to also have people think about the future of AR and how it can be used to revive historical buildings or anything else without actually having to modify the site itself. At the same time, we kept in mind to tailor the content to the target audience, so tourists at the Dam Square. The concept for the stories is that there are 3 different ones, which can be read independently of each other. So even though there is a somewhat logical order between them, we made sure that there's the option for users to click what they find most interesting and start from there to keep it flexible. We aim to keep the use of language very accessible and the tone neutral but engaging. Because of some of the feedback we received along the way, we also kept them quite short, especially because people might be using the app on the Dam Square. And you don't want to read entire articles when you're standing on a busy square. To make the text easy to read, we broke them up as much as possible by subheadings, images, and quotes. The language we developed everything is English, since it's the most universally spoken language among our target audience. For one of the 3 stories, however, we also have a Dutch version already, and we aim to expand this further, maybe also with other languages. We also produced an abridged audio version, so this is a shorter version which conveys the same message, but then in a more concise way, for people who might not want to read the text, but still want to learn something. So now, oh God. I'll quickly go to the slide again. Yes, okay, I'll have a quick overview of the stories. So the first one, How Did the Nave Disappear?, tells the story of the storm that destroyed the nave and shows how the storm was perceived at the time. And it also shows example of how the storm is still in our imagination today, such as the song by Blood God. Then the next story tells about what happened after the nave collapsed. So it didn't become a square at first, but the ruins were actually left until the early 19th century, so for 150 years. And we tell the story of how during this time, the ruins were a meeting place for all kinds of people. And we zoom in on the case of homosexual men who met here, because this actually led to the Sodoma trials in the 18th century, which are still commemorated on the square today, which you can also see on the slide on the right. That's the commemorative plaque on the Dam Square right now. The third one is about the different perspectives on the nave and how we can preserve it. So yeah, okay, will it return in some way, shape, or form? First, we give some background as to why it would be important to preserve. So we discuss the history of the Dam as a symbol of Utrecht. Then we discuss the plans of Stichting Herbouw Domkerk, who might want to reconstruct parts of the church that were lost. And lastly, we also bring attention to the potential of bringing back the nave in AR, like in our own app, as a possible alternative for reconstruction to preserve the square, but also have the nave there at the same time. So as I said earlier, we produced audio to go along with it. And for people who can't download the app, for example, we wanted to show a little snippet.
Wednesday, the 1st of August, 1674, was a warm and humid summer's day. Towards the evening, dark clouds started gathering. By the time it was 7 at night, what had started as a small summer storm had escalated into a devastating tempest that raged over the city. The storm only lasted for about 15 minutes, but had long-lasting consequences. Wednesday, the 1st of August.
Right. I will briefly go into the technical details of the app. We built it using Unity. It's a widely used engine to build various kinds of applications in it. And because of this, it's also possible to deploy it in both Android and iOS. Currently, the iOS version has a couple of bugs in it related to iOS, but in general, the app works on both platforms. To implement the AR features, we used the AR Foundation engine for AR. That was also implemented in Unity. They had a package for that. And additionally, the WebXR package is used, and this could be used in the future to expand the project to use it on browsers. So currently, it's only available as an app, but the plan was originally to implement it in a browser for ease of accessibility. And the WebXR exporter can export the application to use in a browser. But unfortunately, we did not have the time to fully investigate those possibilities. I will really quickly show an overview of the app right now. Yes, everyone should be seeing the app right now, I think. The big model in the center shows the AR model, and if we tap on that, we go to the AR experience. I will not show that right now. We have a video of that better displays how well it works. If you tap on the bottom icons, you go to the stories themselves. You can read all the text. There's images in there. And in this one on the bottom, you can also play the song that was discussed. And on the top of the screen, you see the UI buttons. There's one to view the sources of the story. And the sources will show up, and you can scroll through them. The button next to it plays the audio that Niels just described. That shows the story of this story in audio form. The I button goes to the about page. It's not as interesting. And the flag switches the language. So there's English and Dutch. And with the arrows, you can switch between the stories. As you can see, this story does not have the language and the audio buttons because those are currently only available for the first story. But that's always a route to expand the app in the future. And the last story. And then Niels will take back the screen, I think, and show the video. And here we can see the AR model of the Dom Church being portrayed outside. And you can change how big it is, rotate it around, look at it, and you can make it really quite big, as you can see.
Sorry, I was muted, but now I'm back. While we are very happy with what we have created, there are still some steps we believe we have to take before it's completely ready, before it's completely optimized for use on the Square. And a few of these steps, if we can go to the slide, include to make the app available in the App Store, so it's available for all iOS devices. And we mainly have to fix it for bugs for iOS code before we can make it available there. Also, we're thinking of making it available through a browser instead of only through an app, so there's a lower threshold for using it, because now, of course, you have to download an app before you have to use it. And ideally, you can go straight to the experience and not have any download time in between scanning the QR code and experiencing the app. Also, we're thinking of translating the story into more languages than Dutch and English, because our target audience is tourists. Obviously, the array of languages that might be necessary to completely satisfy the entire target audience is large. So we have to maybe translate it into more languages. And we also might want to improve our app design, because we haven't subjected that yet to feedback, and to improve these based on this feedback. We also believe that the future potential of this experience is huge, because, as I discussed in the beginning, our initial plan was to project the life-sized AR Nave in its original location. However, because it's proved a bit difficult, we did not do this for this project, but we believe as AR, augmented reality, is a technology that's greatly being developed at the moment, and especially is becoming optimized for handheld devices. We believe that this functionality may be doable within the next 5 years, and maybe even more things are possible in the future. We made a few mock-ups that you can see here, where you can see how it would look if you could, for example, only put a 3D version of the nave in its fixed location. But now instead, of course, we have the entire cathedral that you can put in front of you. So thank you for listening. This is our app, and I hope you scan the QR code and are able to experience it yourself. And I'm very curious to what you think about it. So feedback is always welcome. So thank you for listening, and this was our presentation.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of people are currently applauding your work at home. But now for us, we shall be turning to the Q&A. And the first Q&A question for you as well has already been determined, the same as the last one. If you as a group need to pick a moment that is most memorable out of this entire Living Past adventure, what would it be?
I think we all agree that our most memorable moment as a group was when we saw our product really take shape in our classroom, because we joined together, on one hand, the creative work of the group that did all the research in the Utrecht archives and wrote the stories, and on the other hand, the AR technology developed by the IT group. So what really excited us is that indeed this multidisciplinary aspect of our product was combined with seeing it really working in our homes. We were very excited.
Very good. Yeah, the magical moment of it coming together. I'm already seeing that other questions from other people are coming in, so that's very good. Let's immediately get to it. So Frans van Dam asked the question, what's your position about a potential future rebuilding, so bricks of the nave? It's very interesting, maybe a hairy topic, but I would like to hear an answer to that. What are your thoughts on that?
It is a controversial topic indeed, because we know that there's different views on what should be done. We also know that in the live stream there are different views present, so we have to be very politically correct now. No, but I honestly believe that especially if AR technologies become even more potent and even more powerful in the future, that you can have the best of both worlds. You can really experience what the square would look like with a nave, but you can also experience the beauty of having that square there in the city, because we should not underestimate the value of that square, you know. So it is definitely a difficult topic, and there's arguments for both sides. Mm-hmm. But we think that through AR, and especially through more accurate, more powerful augmented reality, you can have the best of both worlds, and hopefully unite both camps as well.
All right, yeah, that's an interesting notion indeed, that with this AR product that you are building, you're kind of fulfilling the wishes of both sides. But I guess maybe in the comments we'll hear whether that is actually true. We'll have to see, yeah. Very good. We have a next question for you from Rick Compagne, who's also been part of the course, also been telling us a bit about what they're doing at the Utrecht Archives relating to linked data and bringing history to life and sharing the archives. Do you mean we can already scan the QR code on the Dom Square and install the app? Is that already a thing?
Well, you can scan the QR code even just now, and it will work in your living room. Right now, we don't have a QR code in the Dom Square. We haven't put it yet because it's not something that we can do, but it's working. It's working.
Right. Yeah. And at the moment, it's linking to an APK file for just Android phones. But I guess in the future you would be able to access it on the app stores. Is that right? Is that the idea?
Yeah, that would be the idea. And probably have a landing web page where you find a link for Android and iOS.
Yeah.
And it explains a bit about the app.
Good. We have also a question, and I asked the audience now, I'm starting to run out of questions, so this is the moment to put additional ones in. A question by Tim Overkempe. You have chosen to portray the Dom Church just before the storm of 1674. Have you thought about implementing other forms or shapes of the church? For example, the Roman era or after the storm? Interesting.
Yes, so it was initially an idea also to not the Roman era, but to have maybe a version, an AR model that shows the cathedral in its ruined state. So that especially the nave in its ruined state, that shows how the square must have looked for 100 years because it was not fixed or removed. The ruins were not removed for a long time. We did base our AR on the work done by De Rode, and he built his model of the cathedral to be somehow form a harmonious model that shows the relationship of the nave to the current structures that are there. So the version of the nave that he modeled is based on the Gothic architecture, of which remains still stand. But it's definitely also interesting to look into possibilities of augmented realities to show an even older version of the religious building that stood there before, but we haven't considered that.
Okay, so this is a nice novel idea that might be part of the future iteration.
It is.
You need to start with a feasible kind of a minimally viable product, but good question. Thank you, Tim. And then we also have somebody here in the room, one of my fellow teachers, Simon Dirks, and he would also like to ask a question. So please, what would you like to ask the group, Simon?
Well, I'm lighting my face with my phone because I'm in the library. So sorry.
Is it so dark there? I don't remember it being that dark there.
It's very dark here, and it's also a bit echoey. But I'll try to ask my question this way. I was wondering, a lot of these applications in which you make history come alive, they usually tend to be either very engaging or entertaining, or they are very informative, and there's some balance there. And I was wondering, you made an AR app. Do you think the future of AR is mostly entertaining and engaging, or can it also be used for really more informative purposes, like you are doing here? How do you see the future?
Anybody would like to take the floor? Otherwise, we can also make a round, just like we did with the previous group. I see Niels, you unmuted yourself.
I'm trying. Am I unmuted now?
You are unmuted, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a difficult question also because we talked about this a lot, especially because the information we convey itself is not in AR. It's really difficult if you want to make something informative and educational, how you then combine that with AR. We chose for the option to have the AR embedded in the same platform, so the same app as the text. If, as you would say, like the informative use of AR, I see a future in the sense that it then has to be embedded in the same medium. So all the information that we need to find ways to more closely embed them in AR models instead of having to go back and forth.
Yeah. Are you anybody would like to add to this? Are you satisfied, Simon, with the answer?
Very much. Yeah. Thank you, Niels.
Excellent, very good. Then we can go to the next question. Though I'd really like to point out your version also has audio, right? So I'm wondering maybe the visual of AR and the audio of kind of being pointed at things to look at might also be interesting. But it's more a suggestion than a question. So let me get back to the question. That's my role today. Marco van Egmond has a question for you. Google Earth supplies 3D imagery of buildings. Is it conceivable that this will be extended with historic imagery like yours? So to contribute to the Google Earth kind of a repository of knowledge, or how would you frame this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. Often the historical architecture or the historical structures and the current structures overlap. So when you're on Google Earth, you cannot show the current buildings and the old buildings at the same time. But this is also why the Dom Square is a unique example, because this is a place where an old historic building has disappeared and nothing has come in its place. So you have a big empty space, which is a unique opportunity to use AR to fill up that space. But it's definitely, I think it's an exception to the rule, because most of the times there used to be other buildings underneath, or other things were built on top of it, or it's become a mixture of architectural styles. Like a lot of buildings have become a mishmash over the years. So this is why on the Dom Square, this is a very unique example of where an older building has disappeared and it's left a void that actually can easily be filled up with augmented reality. And it's definitely interesting to do more research to find similar examples across the world to see where else this could be implemented. But it's not something that's always the case.
Okay, that's an interesting notion. So to AR maybe makes it easier to fill up a space than it is to just change a building or a place altogether if there are other materials there. That makes sense, yeah. All right, I think then I'd like to move towards a final question with Juan Peters. You've been working together with the municipality on this as well, right? You've been in touch with them as in what will be a fitting kind of an experience for tourists and citizens of Utrecht to actually see and experience this on Dom Square and maybe access it through a QR code on the scaffolding that's currently there on the Dom itself at the moment as well. What did they think of your test version? Did you already get a response on the current version of it? Maybe also a question to the room if Margot and Bart are here from the municipality to answer that. But how has that collaboration been? Because you've kind of been working with them to build this product, right? To make it fit. How has that experience been?
Yeah, so we've definitely been in contact with them, and we proposed different ideas over the course of the last 7 weeks. The final product, as we presented today, they have not yet seen, so I'm very curious to find out what they thought. And yeah, we are definitely open to see what they think and go from there.
All right, so feedback very much welcome, I hear. Any additional remarks that you'd like to make on that? Then maybe I still see a comment here by Simon. I can see this app working as a part of guided tours as well. The stories being told by an expert while you're looking at a virtual nave might be a very nice experience. It's also an interesting notion, yeah, that you can kind of combine the physical presence of a guide with an AR kind of a aspect to it. Yeah. All right, I think our time is up for Team Koala. If there are no final things you want to say as a group, then I'd like to thank you for this wonderful get-together that we've had, this Q&A. Maybe we can do the same thing as with the other group. Maybe you can, would you be okay with that, doing a little marketing slogan, like a one-sentence kind of a notion of why people should go through the trouble of opening their phone, scanning the QR code, and getting this app installed? Let's make a round. So maybe Chantal, you can go first. Why should people install this application that you've built?
Okay, I came here in Utrecht and I didn't know anything about the storm, about the church or anything. And I know now, after 1 month, that there are panels on the side of the church where you can see what happened. But those panels are not something that you really see if you're a visitor and you're just passing by and you're just taking a picture of the church and the academic building and that. So I think that this kind of product that we are delivering really can put you in the mind of what happened, and you can really learn and entertain yourself at the same time. That's my opinion.
All right. Yeah, that's a strong pitch there. Maybe in the meanwhile, Niels, can I ask you to get the QR code on the screen? Then people might still be able to download it right now while we're going towards the closure. And in the meanwhile, maybe I can ask Arafat, maybe you can give a one-sentence kind of a slogan for why people should be downloading this application. If the microphone is working out. Oh, your microphone is still off.
I think if you want history in your hands, history of the dome in your hands, you should download the app.
Okay, that's very much to the point. Very good. Rob, could you give us a one-sentence slogan?
I think with the app you can really see history come alive for your eyes and make it experience how big it really is.
Nice. Max?
See the nave. See it in your own living room or on a square.
That's right. Yeah, you can bring the nave into your living room right now. Just download this wonderful app through the QR code on your screen at this moment. And then finally, Niels, maybe you a final note, and then we will move on to the closure.
Yeah, exactly. In the end, how it turned out, you don't even have to go to the Dome Square, so it's very appropriate for these times. You can just do it, you find an open space somewhere and make it as big as you want. And yeah.
Excellent. Very good. I also see that Bart has responded meanwhile. You can see it in the chat, but overall he's happy with it, and I guess you can continue the conversation on making it even better and making it fit exactly for the purpose. In general, I see some compliments, so please take a look at the chat and enjoy them. And then we're going to enjoy a little bumper video before we move to the main room, where we have the opportunity to talk with everybody that has participated in this course, including all the instructors. So prepare your questions for the final Q&A and reflection. See you there. Okay, and welcome once again. We have returned to the main room, where we have the opportunity to talk with all of the students. They're still coming in from all the rooms now. Elsewise, we also have some instructors and student assistants here to be with us. So this is really the moment for you to ask questions for the entire group. If you'd like to know more about Living Past and the process that we've been through, this is the moment. Otherwise, this is a moment of reflection, of kind of looking at these products. We already got kind of an idea of what they want to do in the future, right? Of continue to build these products. So that is very nice. I'm kind of waiting for these questions. I'm also wondering if Twan will be joining this, because I think the question surrounding Google Earth would also be very interesting for him to be part of. So I'll just click all the join buttons here, and then we'll find out who gets into the room. All right. Maybe in the meanwhile, I think Twan has joined, but I'll let him accommodate to this room first. Maybe we can talk a bit about the experience of being on the other side, and we have a question by Frans as well. But maybe let's first talk about it from the other side. So maybe Tim and Simon, you can tell us a bit about how has it been to support these groups rather than be part of the making the products as a team itself. Maybe I could ask Simon first. What was your experience in this regard?
Yeah, it's been amazing, and this course it's been the third time, and every time it's different. I think that's very nice about having these people from all kinds of disciplines. I mean, as assistants and as instructors, you're learning more than the students usually, right?
Secretly,
because you see everyone's perspectives, and people coming together. And it's really nice that we can also help out sometimes. So technical aspects I've helped out with sometimes. Tim is a very experienced researcher. So in that way, we all really work together. I feel like that's something special about this course that I say every time. It's not a typical hierarchical bureaucracy course, right? There's actually things happening. And in 10 weeks, these two teams have actually made apps, which is insane. I mean, some of these people couldn't even program before, so it's baffling to me. I think everyone's done an amazing job. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a wonderful incubator for seeing all your talent kind of pour out in these products is wonderful. And maybe Tim, you can also comment a bit on this, because you were part of the live streams last year on the other side. You were a student back then, right? So how has it been now being on the other side and being a student assistant to the course?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I agree with Simon a lot, like on basically all the points. I think it's also really nice to see from our perspective that it's such a diverse group where you start with at the beginning of the course. And then now seeing all these prototypes come about, it's really great to see such a diverse group of people coming from totally different backgrounds, different countries, different schools or universities. It's really nice to see it work out like that.
Good to hear, good to hear. Let's see, maybe Tuan, you can give a small comment on it, and then I'd like to go to one content question. How has it been for you to be an instructor? You've been here from the start, kind of building up Living Past. It's also kind of part of the Utrecht Time Machine Consortium. How's that been in your role?
What I thought was most amazing is that we, without letting you know, guys, that we started experimenting with a vertical teaching environment. What do I mean by vertical learning educational context is that we mixed talents, pupils with the students from the university, bachelor and master students, and this is quite something because it's rather innovative because there are no such courses currently in the university that accommodate a vertical approach. So maybe that's a question I always, I also want to put to you, and in the evaluation for next Friday, because that's something you can criticize, you can comment on, but it's interesting for me to know what the experiences were. As far as the products are concerned, of course, it was great to see you struggling, literally. Communication problems within the groups. Great, because that's what real life is about. It's always about communication and communication problems. You even see it now in the American elections. And the great thing today is that you could present the finished, between brackets, products of your 10 weeks suffering. And people on the other side looking at it, having their ideas about it. And what I thought was smart is that both groups indicated that this is just a test version. And of course, we have to go back to our audience, the target audience. We choose to design the whole app for. And of course, that is crucial in taking up the comments and then going back to designing stage 2. But that's for the future.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Tuan. Yeah. So as you already heard, on Friday we'll have a big kind of reflection and archiving session together, just internally. But it may be fun to already kind of make a little venture into that territory. Did anybody have any thoughts about this vertical experience? Maybe one of the UTalent students. How did you experience it being part of student teams that are diverse like this, with bachelor students and master students working on a joint product? How did you experience that? So maybe Tim, Tanya, Sebastian, one of you comment on this perhaps?
Well, I thought at first it was very scary because we're working with university students, maybe even students that are 5 years older than you. So that's a really big step and something you have to get used to. But eventually, we were helped, and it was a really educative experience to actually work with these people. So thank you for that.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm sure we'll go deeper into this. Is anybody else who really would like to give a comment on this this live stream and add a perspective to it? It can also be more critical. That's also very welcome, of course. If not,
yes, if I may, Ivar.
yes,
I was just wondering because one of the properties of this course that it is a co-creation course where, let's say, the 2 or 3 sessions are quite sort of fixed, and then it's sort of left to the requirements or the wishes of the students. So whatever they need is brought in the course through the teachers or via guest lecturers, for instance. And I was just wondering, this kind of course requires quite some extent, quite some an amount of autonomy. A question for you as students in this course: didn't you get lost every now and then because of that? How was that for you, or did it feel very well?
it's indeed it's a real balance to strike, between on the one hand offering structure and giving autonomy. I would like to hear a response on that. You can also raise your virtual hand if you don't want to run the risk of talking. Okay, Niels, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, I think your microphone is on now.
Yeah, okay, my computer's getting really slow. Yeah, so I thought it was really great. I would first want to say that the whole co-creation thing is something I've never done, but I think it was definitely part of the learning process and gave us also enough space to actually work on the project. I've been in many courses before where they want us to work on a project but don't give us any time. So that was really nice. And at the same time also give us the opportunity to really say what we think is useful and also say what we don't think is useful. So I thought that was really great. And about being lost, I don't think I felt very lost during the course, but that was mainly because there were some set deadlines. So I think that is, in these types of courses, really essential. And I think maybe the deadlines could have already been a bit earlier sometimes. For example, at some point, I think at the end of week 6 or 7, we had to indicate a timeline for the rest of the course. And I think that could have maybe been earlier.
Right.
To kind
That's a good comment.
Structure it for ourselves.
Yeah, so you would like to have it immediately when you start this bigger project, right? Because there are 2 projects, just for context for the audience. There's the mapping assignment, which is the first thing that students do, going to the square, exploring it, finding out what it is, and then making a walking tour for it. And then the final project, making an application of some sort. But it could have been earlier then. Yeah, good comment. Thank you, Niels. Would anybody else like to try their hand at giving a comment on that particular thing, or on perhaps going back to the vertical teaching that Twan mentioned, or a question that Frans asked in the chat a bit beforehand, which is, did you miss any essential aspects in the course? Anything you would have liked to see in it? All that is welcome. So feel free to raise your virtual hand, and then I'd be very happy to give you the floor. You can also think about it a bit longer, and then I have a question for Twan actually. Maybe going back to this Google Earth question, because it also relates to the Utrecht time machine, right? Of how that is built. So that's what Marco van Egmond, also part of Utrecht University, asked: is that Google Earth supplies 3D imagery of buildings. Is it conceivable that this will be extended with historic imagery like yours? What is your vision on that in the context of Living Past and Utrecht Time Machine, to kind of combine maybe the present and the past in the kind of data we have available and make explorable for people? How do you see that?
I think this is a great challenge. And I agree with Max. What he said about it was really smart and making sense. Is it easy? Not at all. So, and it would be great to for the next course to build on this, to try to integrate the historic maps with Google Earth 3D. Yes, it is an interesting suggestion.
All right, thank you. Then I don't see any additional questions in the chat. If you'd like to ask a question, do it quickly because we are nearing the end of this live stream now. Meanwhile, I can still give the floor to one of us here in the room. If you'd like to comment on any of the questions posed earlier, this is the moment to do so. Maybe before, so I'm giving some time to the chat to formulate their final questions. Of course, you can always get in touch with us later as well. I'll quickly show something for potential future students that may be joining the course, because we have Simon who made this wonderful video of what to expect, which you can see here in the background running without sound, which goes through what the course is, how it works, what kind of you set your personal learning goals together with the course goals. All that it goes into detail, and I really invite you to take a look at that if you're curious to know more about the course, whether for somebody else to invite to join yourself, or just to know as a stakeholder what is this course about. So maybe if I could ask Simon, could you put a link to that video in the chat, and then people can open it there and continue watching. Then we'll return back to the team environment.
I've just one remark.
Yes.
Could you please put the link to the YouTube recording in the chat? Is that possible
of this live
already?
stream, or
of this live stream,
oh,
or
the link will stay the same.
The live stream we just had.
Okay, then the link will stay the same, so it will still be accessible at the same place if you would like to use it. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's a good point indeed. That might not have been the case.
For
All
those
right.
who have not been able to visit or attend the meeting.
Yeah, not to be there live. Indeed, so if you're watching here from the future, we welcome you. Good that you've watched and reached the end of this broadcast. If you're here in the present, also congratulations on reaching the end of this set of presentations. I would like to thank again Team Toad and Team Koala for presenting their works here and doing this Q&A with us and the audience, you out there. Very, very nice that we got some good questions to discuss here together. You're very welcome to send us any follow-up kind of questions or remarks that you might have at livingpass@uu.nl. That is livingpasts@uu.nl. Otherwise, I like to close off by saying once again, thank you for joining in. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And we're going to have a little VR party with the rest of us to kind of close off this live stream section. Hopefully, we will see you again next year when in February the next iteration of this course will start. So we hope you enjoy the products at home, and au revoir. We're still waving. Let's do a big wave, guys. Yeah. Goodbye, everyone.